Hi, Brendan. Hi, Ariel.
Hello.
Thanks for being here today. Thanks to everyone.
Thanks for having us in your inaugural summit.
So we're going to discuss today your new recent partnership between the Spurs and Ledger. And the title of the session is Beyond the Patch. So first of all, Brendan, you're having a great momentum with the Spurs. You're in the conference finals against the defending champions. Also, you're coming back to Paris next year for the Paris Games. Can you tell us more about it? Are you excited?
Very excited. I'll address the elephant in the room last night. From last night, this morning, we lost, but there's still a lot of faith. The team is in good spirits. We feel like we have a handle on what to do next, and so all the Spurs faithful out there, stay strong. We got this. Anyway, yes, we are very excited to get back to Paris. Our time spent here last year was super valuable. Made a great friend, and that turned into, obviously, a fruitful partnership, which we'll get into. But our excitement and enthusiasm for France and Europe generally is immense, and the time is great because the team is performing well. We're putting real intentionality behind our globalization efforts, and it's just a really good time to be a part of Spurs basketball.
Coming back to the title, what does a modern partnership mean when it's not just about a logo placement?
Well, thank you for having me. And yes, I've met a great friend over here on the right. I would say, I think, we have a philosophy at Ledger, and we're a secure digital asset company. So we have to work really hard to make sure our partners can actually help us shine in a way where it tells the right story. And what was amazing about approaching this relationship with the Spurs is it isn't just about checking boxes. It's about coming together and saying, is there value alignment? Do we understand what our shared goal is for the future? And how are we crafting a story together that not only speaks to the everyday fan that's in the audience in the arena, but the millions and millions of fans who are participating around the world, learning about each other's brands and bringing value together. And that really takes working on a partnership from scratch and inception. It was actually a year ago today that we were in deep negotiation on the partnership, and we've been incredibly proud at the success that we've seen in year one. So it's really about having those shared values and coming to the table to make sure that you can reach them.
And how did the opportunity came in?
Well, actually, when the Spurs came to play in Paris over a year ago, the different teams sort of met. And it was one of those things where, let's see. But there was a really important meeting in New York, actually at Madison Square Garden, between myself and Frank and RC, who's the Spurs CEO, and our CEO, Pascal. And we really sat down around the table. And RC, kind of leaned in and spoke about the Pound the Rock narrative and how, there is no Spur that isn't acting without their teammate or in service of their teammate. And I think also they really treat that way about, San Antonio and the Austin community. And that's certainly how Ledger feels about its employees, its customers, and being a really important representative of France internationally. And so we started to see, there's something here, not only just with the logo colors matching our brand colors, but something here that we could build into a really great story.
Perfect. And Brandon, if the deal is not about money, and not only about visibility, it means you're helping solve Ariel's problem, Ledger's problem, and it means Ariel is probably helping you solve something as well. What is it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I would just reframe that question a little bit because it was less problem solving and more optimizing. We've always seen ourselves as a global brand. We've always sort of prided ourselves on being innovative. You think of our international scouting, you think of our data analytics. In our eyes, the next frontier is globalization and being tech forward. And so this is in alignment with that and really optimizing what we're doing there. And so when we're looking at partners, it's important for us to, one, figure out, are they a values match, which Ariel alluded to. They were absolutely a values match in that meeting. And also shared business objectives. What story are we telling that we otherwise couldn't tell by ourselves? There's also some credibility sharing. There's some capability exchange. And so when you couple all that together, you have a really sort of dynamic pairing that we feel really strong about. And another thing about the Spurs is like everything that we do on the basketball side is very intentional, it's disciplined, it's long-term thinking, and we have those same viewpoints and precepts on the business side, and that's how we look at our partnerships.
And Ariel, on your side, how does this partnership helps Ledger, the US?
So Ledger is the world leader in digital asset security, and the US is our top market. But something that's amazing about the Spurs is they actually have the third largest fan base in the NBA, which, to Brandon's point, they've been cultivating for a generation. And for us, what we love is it's a young team that really cares about social impact and financial literacy. It's San Antonio and Austin, which is incredibly sort of tech forward, right? And in addition to that, they're working to make sure that every fan that's coming into the arena understands their partner's story and who they are. Now, we already are a huge player in the crypto industry, but the reality is we secure digital lives, right? And so that means everything that's coming in this sort of agentic and digital private property category, which means suddenly that you have to speak to a consumer in a different way. And actually, NBA fans are 2 times more likely to be interested in digital assets. And so it was a really nascent opportunity for us. And for the Spurs, they have very strong audiences in France, in Mexico, and in Chinese-speaking communities, which is similar to us. So there was a really natural overlap where we could do our jobs by helping to be a home away from home for the Spurs, and they could really help us in giving more visibility to, the brand ethos that we're pushing forward, which is rooted in security and trust.
And I think Ledger is one of the first ever French companies to sponsor an NBA team. What does it mean? Did Wembanyama's presence help in making the decision?
Well, the Spurs have a history of really reaching out and finding international talent. I think they were one of the first in the NBA to take that quite seriously. And if you look at actually the makeup of some of the top players in the NBA recently, Spurs were definitely the leader and not the last. Obviously for us, knowing that Victor is there and is sort of the leader for France, but also the world now, was amazing. Of course, there's the history of Tony Parker and others. And it's something that we have a lot of pride around. And, we've talked about this since, but for our employees, the Spurs executive team visited the office in February and did a talk, and all hands. There's an incredible amount of pride. So having Victor there was really important and a natural tie-in, but it wasn't the core representation of why we chose the team.
And just real quick to add to that, Victor Wembanyama has made us all significantly better at our respective jobs, and so we don't take that for granted. And so we're just excited that he is as good of a human as he is a basketball player, and we got very lucky with that, frankly. And so we're just excited to lean into that. But we go as far as Victor goes, and that includes sort of his proclivity to doing things. And so we want to make sure that our players, inclusive of Victor, are comfortable in the efforts that we're doing, and partners like Ledger make that quite easy because of the shared values that we both have talked about.
And actually, just to double click on that, we recently in February announced a new court that we're restoring in Nanterre, which is a great example of that coming to life naturally.
When you're building such a partnership, there are always some risks. How are you working to mitigate the risks, and what kind of the risk can it be on both sides?
Yeah, so half my job is to be a lawyer, and so risk is always at the forefront of everything that we think about. I think when we're analyzing risk, anytime you're with a sort of tech-forward organization or doing things that are cutting edge, there is inherent risk. But with that comes a formula and figuring out sort of what's behind that. The values piece was a huge part of that and mitigating some of that. But also, what is their vision? What is sort of the opportunity that's out there? In our eyes, there's a bigger risk to not do something and not take chances with companies that have check all the other boxes, shared alignment, business goals, storytelling, et cetera. And so we did the calculations and realized that this is in fact not as risky as it may seem on paper.
Yeah, and I would say it's, as someone who comes from the brand side, it's kind of my job to regularly negotiate with the legal team on convincing that something is not that big of a risk. And it was definitely the most significant brand investment that Ledger has made as a business. But for us, the risk was not taking the bet that this would help grow the brand and that we were doing it with the absolute best partner that existed in the right moment in time. And sometimes you actually just can't fight kismet. And that's truly how the partnership felt. And it's actually been incredibly amazing to see how much innovation the Spurs organization works with on a regular basis. They were the first to go to OpenAI for a partnership. You know, they were the first to do so many things. So I think the risk was actually not trusting your gut and the data behind you.
I think, just one more point on that. I think if you guys think of the brands that you know and the partners that you associate with them, it's almost like the best partnerships are the ones that feel, in hindsight, inevitable. And that's what our hope is for this. You don't want your brand partnerships to feel like who won the RFP. You want there to be true alignment. Sometimes that takes years to unearth, but for ours, it was obvious. We had an intentionality in France. We had a tech-forward approach. We had sort of a storytelling angle that we wanted to do, not only in Europe, but around the world. And what better partner than Ledger, who is doing those same things?
And a bit earlier, you talked about how innovative are the Spurs. Can you give us some concrete examples?
Of what?
How much the Spurs are an innovative team and an innovative company? Do you have some examples around that?
Yeah, so an example would be we launched earlier this year an AI studio. And so really leaning into sort of AI technology in partnership with OpenAI to, one, get our entire staff sort of on board with the future of the world, which is artificial intelligence, but also to allow our partners to unlock ways to engage and interact with our fans. And so an example of that is something we did with Michelob Ultra. Something that our partners have always talked about is sort of getting access to things that were otherwise not available. And one of those things were the player tunnel walks. And so when our players come into the game, they have on their fancy outfits, and that's something that every fan, every person that watches our games wishes they could be a part of. And so with our technologies, with OpenAI, we found a way to build an app that allows you to take a selfie, allows you to pick your outfit, allows you to pick the theme, and now it'll place you in the exact same tunnel, going the exact same route that our players are walking to each and every game. And so it allows us to position ourselves as tech forward. It allows our fans to engage with our brand in ways they otherwise couldn't. And it allows a partner like Michelob Ultra to reach fans in a way that's going to be impactful and that they'll remember and that they can share with their friends and family. So that's just an example of sort of bringing all of that together through artificial intelligence in our partnerships.
And Ariel, how does sport... It's one of your first partnerships in sport. How important is sport in your strategy? How do you relate? How does Ledger relate to sport?
Well, we're also the very proud partner of the Ledger Young Star Games, which in France is sort of the team of emerging French talent. And actually, Victor's younger brother is also on that team. And so we're proud to be a partner for that and for Paris. It's really interesting because if you look at sports fans, they're really intergenerational fans. Like if you do it right, it's something where you're born and you don't always have a choice. You kind of know what team you are prescribed to. And there's something about that that's incredibly emotional and reverent. And for us, you know, I always said I come from a background where I was at Vice Media for years. You want to be the song that people want to listen to. You don't want to be the homework assignment. And so when we're teaching something that's complicated and new, which is what we're doing in our category, you really want to partner with an organization that's fun, reverent, it's intergenerational, and it's always expected to change and grow. Like, I love what Brandon just gave as an example for innovation, because the reality is like every person who's on Instagram who's into sports follows league fits. and wants to tap into street culture. That's why they're buying a certain type of shoe or outfit, etc. And that's why all of these brands are partnered with Sports Team, because it's something that says something about who you are and your identity. Similarly with Ledger, because we're a brand leader in the space and we're aspirational, people, when you see a Ledger, it says something about who you are. And so for us, being partnered with sports gives us a natural extension into a community that we know has a heightened interest in our category, and does so in a way where we're not shoving it down their throat.
And are there other communities than Spurs you'd be looking at in the next years?
Spurs is our one and only family.
Thank you.
Great answer.
I do think it's important to double click on sort of the emotional connection that is sports. When people wake up, I'm sure some of you woke up this morning and the first thing you did was check the score of the Spurs game. That's an emotional connection that is sometimes hard for legacy brands or even brands that are sort of more tech forward to really tap into. And so what this partnership allows a tech forward company like Ledger to do is tap into the emotional connection that we have with our fans. Our fans, frankly, are thinking about us multiple times a day. With all due respect, I'm not sure how many times people are thinking of their crypto security multiple times a day. But it just allows them to sort of draft off of that emotional connectivity in a way that's authentic and meaningful, and allows our fans to remember who we partner with because we've built that credibility, and Ledger is obviously beneficiary of that.
Yeah, and we've seen actually over the course of the first season of the partnership really strong support of Spurs fans, like understanding who Ledger is. You know, we sort of did a test at the beginning and now towards the end of the season. And even in going, like from the initial moments to, you know, we both were there this weekend at the games, and a guy who goes all the time came up to me and he was like, I've seen you before, you're from Ledger, like, we love Ledger, this is what, you know, and it's those types of things that it's one example that obviously cascades and ripples out. We both put in the hard work for that, but it's incredibly important, and you don't see it. I mean, I did my own diligence beforehand, and there were other teams that, you know, you're really just checking the box, and neither of our organizations ever just want to check the box.
I've seen something over the weekend. You were the first ever NBA team to do a TIFO?
Yes. So obviously in European culture, TIFOs are extremely regular, and I would argue fans in Europe are wild compared to fans in the US sometimes. We did a Vice World of Sports show that kind of showed that back in the day, but Spurs fans are not. Spurs fans rival European sports fans, and I would argue that in some cases are more incredible. I mean, look at the Jackals and what's being built there, but we've been able to work with the Spurs organization to bring, you know, one of the first ever TIFOs to the NBA, and the Jackals were the representation of that, and now they've been doing their own TIFO at every game, and that's been just amazing to see, and the fan response has been crazy.
I will say that I had no idea what a TIFO was until like a few months ago. I kept hearing people talk about, have you seen the TIFO? Have you heard about the TIFO? So I finally Googled what TIFO was and learned. It's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. And who was the idea from? Ledger or the ultras, the fans?
I mean, I think what's great is if it's a good project, you kind of can't remember. It's like when a good friendship starts. I'm pretty sure that we were talking with the team about you know, the Jackals, which were really created this year and have been amazing. I highly recommend you follow them on Instagram. But and so we started thinking about, okay, well, what can they do that will be really exciting once the Spurs got past and sort of into the playoffs? And then it naturally evolved from there. And actually, with the first one, we worked with Shaq, who's a local artist in San Antonio, because they have a great history in San Antonio of murals and mural art of the players. And so it's how do we bring San Antonio culture to the world, and vice versa. And so again, always really thinking about that culture and that through line of what's the story that we want to tell. So European culture, San Antonio culture, and then that was really how it came to life.
What's the American kind of type of action, similar as a TIFO, you could bring to the Paris game next year?
That's a great question. Hot dogs and hamburgers? No, I'm kidding.
Literally was going to say.
I don't know. You stumped me.
Yeah. That was
you guys. I mean, if I'm ranking sort of fandom, I think you guys do it quite well here, and so I think we have a lot to learn from European fan bases that I don't know that I would bring anything from America here.
I think you just have to bring all the jackals for the game.
What's next for Ledger in the coming months and years?
Well, there's a lot of really exciting things happening around our AI and agentic roadmap, and how that relates to what we'll be bringing to some of the fans in the Spurs and beyond. Obviously, you can't get through a conversation today with talking about AI, but that just means that there are more things for people to learn about how to stay secure without making it more difficult. And we're obviously incredibly excited that the Spurs are in the playoffs, and I was saying backstage before this that everything that's happening this year around that is really a bonus for us in the partnership. So we're really here to continue to support their work and see what happens in the summer league, and then we come back together again in the fall. But some of the impact work that we've been really proud to be able to support through the partnership is year-round. And so stay tuned for more, but we come back full strong in the fall.
And what's next for the Spurs?
Yeah, before I get to that, I actually have one. I was thinking about it while she was answering that question. High-end hospitality, I think we do better in the States than you guys do here. And as someone who enjoys that, I think there's a lot left to be desired in some of the hospitality spaces here. And so take that.
Shots fired.
Yeah, that was unnecessary, so I apologize. What's next for the Spurs? Super exciting team. Really watch out for our globalization efforts. We don't look at ourselves as a sports team. We look at ourselves as an entertainment company. And so we're doing a lot of things that are sports adjacent, and frankly, not even about sports. It's about lifestyle and culture and really meeting fans where they're at. And so there's a lot of things that are in the works now that are really innovative and other teams aren't doing. So I would say if you're not a fan, I would still pay attention to the Spurs, because some of the things that we have coming online are going to be really innovative, and we hope sort of are the precedent for the future of sport and sport organizations.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say I didn't know until this year that San Antonio gets the same amount of tourists as Las Vegas every year. And yeah, RC taught me that, and I was shocked to learn it. And the Spurs actually has an incredible sort of new arena and city development project that I think is going to be a really interesting opportunity for France and other places to actually have a representation of the market back and forth. So I would definitely say, like, if you're lucky enough to have a chance to chat with Brandon one-on-one on this trip, there's some really good stuff happening. I'm his agent.
Thanks a lot, Ariel and Brandon. We've been lucky to have you. Now it's going to be the next session.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.